Hey, good afternoon. This is Rick Hogeboom. I shared a video earlier about what's going on in Michigan based on a recent poll that came out recently and has Harris up, but I still think Trump's going to win Michigan until I see more data to show otherwise. But you can take a look at that video. I shared it on Facebook. On this video, I wanted to share what's going on in Pennsylvania and why I do think Trump's going to win Pennsylvania. I know the polls show that it's tight, it's neck and neck, but I want to show what's been going on in Pennsylvania since 2020. So in 2020, Biden beat Trump. It was very, very close. 50% of the popular vote went to Biden, 48.8% went to Trump. So 1.2% victory. What I want to really highlight is the registration breakdown. In 2020 in Pennsylvania, 46.3% of the voters were registered as Democrat, 39.2% were registered as Republican, and other 14.5%. Biden got 50%, Trump got 48.8%. Obviously, Trump overperformed relative to the proportion of voters who affiliated with the respective party. So what's been going on in Pennsylvania? There's been some chatter that the Republicans have been registering more voters, that they've been tightening that lead of registered Democrats over Republicans, and the data suggests that in fact is the case. As of March of 24, the Democrat Party, which was 46.3% of registered voters in 2020, in March of 24 dropped to 44.85%. The Republicans, who were 39.2% of registered voters in Pennsylvania in 2020, climbed to 40.03%. So, yes, very minimal gain, but the trajectory 39.2 to 40.03, not quite a point, but we'll see that as of this past week, the Republicans are now at 40.23% when they were 39.2%. So they've gained a point of the voter share as far as party affiliation in Pennsylvania, whereas Democrats standing today have gone from 46.3% to 44.02%. They've lost over 2 points, while the Republicans have gained 1 point. That means that's a net 3-point swing to the favor of Republicans, or 3-point swing away from the advantage of Democrats. Biden won by a little over a point, but going into the election this cycle, there's been a 3-point swing where the Republicans are stronger than they were in 2020. Now, is that 3-point swing enough to make up that 1.2% loss for Trump? I think so. I think just the foundational undercurrent of the data that we see is showing that the Republicans are closing in on a narrow victory, at least in the presidential race. I don't see that in the Senate race. I see Senator Casey consistently have a advantage in polling data that's larger than the margin of error. So I'd have to see more data to think that Senator Casey wouldn't lose as the Democrat. So there's a lot of split voters going on in Pennsylvania where they are voting for Casey as senator and Trump as president. So my prediction, based on the factor of the overperformance, or I should say the performance of the Democrat relative to the registered Democrats, the Republican relative to the number of registered Republicans, if you take this 3-point swing and you apply the factor and say that people are going to vote kind of in the same way that they did 4 years ago, but just with the new voter registration data, I have Trump at 49.83% in my prediction model and Harris at 47.72% in my prediction model. So how and why am I making these prediction models? Well, one, Pennsylvania is one of the parties that does provide data on voter affiliation. Not all the states do this, In fact, I cite it as one of the challenges in Michigan, and it's also a challenge in Wisconsin. And there's quite a few states that don't provide voter affiliation breakdown, but Pennsylvania does. And what's been happening in Pennsylvania? This is straight from the PA website. These are new voter registrations since 9/19/23, and so we're looking at about a 1 year and a week worth of data of new registrations. And you'll see this pie chart that they have. The Republicans are 34.01% of the new voter registrations. The Democrats are at 30.86. We'll just call that 31%. And independent or others, 35%, which is technically the largest share of the new registration, the registrations that have occurred over the last year. But Republicans have a 3 point, if you round up to 31. So Republicans, more people are registering as Republican than Democrat over the past year in Pennsylvania. So all the chatter about Republicans making a strong effort to register voters, we see that that is in fact the case. Now, I know that that's a very marginal difference in that percent, but 52,795 new registered Republicans, 47,914 registered Democrats. We're looking at close to 4,000 more Republicans than Democrats. So this is part of what's contributing to that updated voter share that I showed in this chart, which is showing that Democrats are less of the voter share today than they were 4 years ago, and Republicans are slightly more of the voter share than 4 years ago. But there's one more thing I want to show you, and that is already existing registered voters who have changed their party affiliation. And Pennsylvania tracks this data in a very helpful way. And I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet here. This is by county the number of voters who have switched their existing party affiliation. So these are not new voters getting registered. These are voters who've already been registered who are changing their party affiliation. And what you have here is two Democrat. Let's see if I can make this bigger. There we go. What you see in the totals, this is just in the 1 week here, 3,696 voters changed from Republican or other to Democrat. So you see 1,356 Republicans became Democrats, 2,340 other or independents became Democrats. Now look at the Republican numbers. 2,887 Democrats became to Republican, 1,895 other became Republican. And so just in the last week of Pennsylvania tracking, 1,000 more voters have become Republican than have become Democrat. That's a net 1,000 voter shift to the favor of Republicans. Now, what about year to date? If you scroll over here and look at year to date, look at this. This is what's going on in Pennsylvania. This is significant. 53,387 voters total, right? Republicans and other have become Democrats, switched to Democrats. But look at how many have swapped to become Republicans. 51,505 Democrats have said, I'm not a Democrat anymore, switch me to Republican. 30,519 other, for a total of 82,000. This is nearly a 30,000 net positive gain for Republicans. I'm rounding here. So new voters getting registered are registering as Republicans more than Democrats. Those who are already registered voters who are switching their affiliation are increasingly more Republican than Democrat. This is just the yearly total for 2024. So when you compare these numbers over 2020 here, this is why you see this swing as part of the voter share. So I took the data, put it in, and then just did a simple division over the total number of registered voters. And we see that been a 3-point swing to the favor of Republicans in a state where Trump lost by a little over 1%. I believe that 3% swing will more than offset that 1.2% loss 3 years ago. And this week, next week, and the following weeks, there's this continued trend in Pennsylvania where people are moving to the Republican Party and new people are registering to vote, and they're more likely to be Republican by a very slim margin over Democrats. So all the trend lines are moving to the favor of Trump, and that's why I've predicted in my electoral map that Trump will win Pennsylvania unless I see data that suggests that Harris is polling +6, +7, and I look at the cross-tabulated data and the proportionate representation among the parties and see that the sampling is proportionately correct, will I change my opinion and say that Harris would likely win Pennsylvania? But so far, so long as her polls in Pennsylvania, or the polls in Pennsylvania, are Harris +1, +2, I just see all of these undercurrents that suggest that there's about a 3% shift over the 1% loss 4 years ago. So I have Trump about +2 in my predictor model. I will update this as we get closer to the election and I see more data.